Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Sherwat, Associate Professor of Management and Director of the MBA programs at AUC School of Business. I hope you are all keeping well and safe and staying safe. Welcome to the Willard W. Brown International Business Leadership webinar. Today's session is titled Purpose Mindset, Effective Leadership, Moving from Growth to Purpose, featuring Dr. Akhtar Badshah. And allow me please to take a few moments just to introduce our special guest here. Dr. Badshah is the Distinguished Practitioner at University of Washington School of Business and Evans School of Public Policy and Governance. He's the founder and curator of Accelerating Social Transformation, a mid-career professional development certificate course on social impact. Dr. Badshah is the author of Purpose Mindset, How Microsoft Inspires Employees and Alumni to Change the World, a topic that will be relating to today. He's a seasoned executive with over 30 years of experience in international development, managing a corporate philanthropic program and co-founding a global non-profit for social enterprise. Dr. Badshah led Microsoft's philanthropic efforts for 10 years, where he administered the company's community investment and employee contributions. His role was instrumental in launching both Unlimited Potential and Youth Spark, Microsoft's focus to bring digital technology to the underserved communities and youth all over the world. He's also Chief Catalyst at Catalytic Innovators Group, an organization that advises individuals and companies to catalyze their social and philanthropic investments. I hope you enjoyed today's session, and I'd like to remind you that if you have any questions, to please insert them in your Q&A box down below. Dr. Badshah, lovely to have you here. Welcome to AUC.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sherwat Ibrahim. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm really looking forward to this conversation, and I have extremely fond memories of AUC in my previous visits.
All right, we have got some of those. And again, there is so much we want to cover today. And let us begin first by what inspired the book and how it relates to your engagement with Microsoft. Corporate matching gifts and philanthropy programs are not unique to Microsoft, and what began as an employee payroll deduction in its first year back in the 80s, it was 17K, became today over a $2 billion operation. And can you tell us more about the institutional structure that shaped the culture of the company and the behavior maybe of its employees and alumni, and how it became this movement?
Thank you very much. Writing a book is always a challenge, as we all know. Having an idea of a book is always great because it's a great cocktail conversation. You don't have to really do anything. But my interest in this subject actually started very early on. My wife joined Microsoft in 1993, and she was on the East Coast working out of the New York, New Jersey office, and I was in New York at a nonprofit at that time, Megacities Project, which we actually did a lot of work in Cairo at that time. And I would see in the month of October, this huge effort to rally employees to donate to causes. And I was looking at it from a distance, and it was always kind of fascinating as to why a bunch of engineers would kind of rally around to support their community. And when we moved to Seattle, my wife, moved to headquarters, I got a first-hand look at to what that energy was. And when I was asked to run the program, I then got a much closer look at it. And to me, it wasn't that there are thousands and thousands of companies that have employee matching gifts programs and philanthropy programs. That's not unique. What was really very fascinating to me was that this seemed to be more as a DNA of the company rather than just something that was a good to do and a nice to do. And that's really what I started to understand, that from its early inception, it was launched as a way to really give these 20-something engineers who were spending 18, 19 hours coding to change the world an opportunity to get engaged with their community. This is the place that they were going to live in, they were going to grow up in, this is where they were going to get married, this is where they were going to have kids. And they felt that the community engagement program, the match and gifts program, the employee volunteer program was all a way to get people outside of the office and into the community so that they can connect to the community and understand in the community and live their lives outside of just coding. And that to me was the forward thinking of why this was created. And that's how it then became a movement. That moment of first starting it over years, when you start up with $17,000, which is fine, to now $200 million that were raised by our employees and matched, right, by the Microsoft employees. And then, about now, $7-8 billion have been invested over the lifetime through cash and technology services. So to me, that was the interest. But as I started writing the book and talking to people and getting their stories, to me, the important thing then became that there was a mindset shift that was happening, not for everybody, but for a percentage of people. And that mindset shift became the more critical piece, because that's really where you start transferring talent and know-how and knowledge into humanity. And that's what the book is all about.
Very nice. I mean, I took a look at the book, and for me, I wanted to understand, do you think it's best to use it as a effective leadership tool, guidance for, top management, or is it, you can look at it multiple ways, personal growth that you can use to update and inspire you. Can you tell us more about this term coined purpose mindset that was coined by Hurst, and he invited you to use it, and how it's different, and what you're promoting is a bit different than what's been out there for quite a while?
Right. So Aaron Hurst is a dear friend. I mean, he wrote this book called The Purpose Economy. And in that book, he basically said that our economy is now moving from the information age into the purpose age. And the way he kind of argued was, in any given group, I mean, you take the 66 people that are on this call, you could literally divide them into thirds. A third are driven by purpose. This is just who they are. A third are driven by money, and a third are driven by status. And it has got no value judgment, right? There are certain times when we really just need to earn a living, and that's what we are driven. I came to the United States as an immigrant student. My first job was to, hey, I need to go get some money so I can eat, right? So there is no value judgment. But what it found was that if you could create activities that created a secondary value, which was purpose, amongst the 66% that were not driven by purpose, you might actually increase the way by which our employees participate and the community thrives. And when I was writing the book, he basically said, why don't you call it purpose mindset? I was actually going to title it From Moments to Movements.
Right.
And that's when we actually started talking about what is the mindset that needs to change. And to me, it is both a personal discovery. The book is all about personal discovery and a leadership tool. Because every single one of us has a purpose, otherwise we are not alive. But we don't necessarily focus on it, nor do we activate it. And the book is all about trying to get people to understand, how do you activate your purpose? I mean, we have to have a purpose, otherwise we will not be part of humanity.
I understand the purpose part, but here's the point. I mean, you're a big believer that, of course, empathy can be trained or acquired, right? Or compassion can be. And I think that's a very nice premise to have. So, if you look at them in stages, and how generosity can move to more like when you give away money. It's Ramadan right now, right? So, people understand the idea of generosity and giving, but then how do you take it from generosity to what you call empathy, and even you take it to that compassion level? And I think you talk about that a little bit also in your book.
So let me just give you an example from Cairo, from Egypt, right? Of course, we are, as humans, we are generous. We see somebody in trouble, we might help them. We say some kind words, we say some nice words. It is Ramadan. As Muslims, we do zakat. It is part of that belief. Just think about it. As a religion, we have embodied generosity as part of our belief system, right? And all religions do that. So we become generous. The question becomes, how do we move from generosity to being empathetic? And empathy happens when you are close to somebody. But can we become close to somebody that we don't know? And here is what happens, right? So you take the Zabalin, they collect garbage. People basically see them as, garbage collectors. They have no status. But here they are on a donkey going through the streets of Cairo, keeping it clean in whatever form. And they make a living, and that for them is their purpose. The purpose is to ensure that Cairo is clean. So if a Zabalin can have it, the woman in Siva that is actually coding and completely veiled is learning how to create a website, not because she wants to learn to create a website, but that is the only way she can actually sell the dates that they grow there internationally so that they can have a better living for their community. So empathy translates into any form. In Fayoum, the weavers, the traditional weavers, are doing this work with Visa Wasaf and others, are all in that same space. Right? In the pyramids, we can't constantly focus on the how it was built. Now we start understanding the why. And that then transforms us from just focusing on the mundane to the aspirational. And purpose is about that, to me, the movement from generosity to empathy to compassion. And not all of us are going to be fully compassionate. Kailash Satyarthi, who won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2011, explained this to me and said, look, being compassionate is the innermost circle. We can all be generous, we can be empathetic, but compassion is when you're willing to give your life for somebody that you don't know. Most of us are not going to do that and should not do that. But we can be on that journey where our focus is not just on the betterment of the self and our immediate family, but to the community writ large. And if you can understand that you're part of an extended community, whether it's your neighborhood, whether it's your community, whether it's your extended family, then the mind starts shifting in terms of our values.
I understand what you're saying, but for the mind to shift again, there seems to be certain steps that you need to take, because with all due respect to the examples you used, of course, and I'm very happy to have your local insight, and you mentioned Egypt and Cairo, and we hope to have you here physically soon again. But the whole idea is like, what do you need to do to be able to transform this mindset, to be the person, in Zabarin riding that donkey and thinking, hey, I'm doing this to a larger cause? Because we know it's not happening right now, Akhtar. I understand you talk about abundance and how we should stop asking people who they want to become, but how they want to serve. Can you expand a little bit on that one, maybe on the other principles that you?
Yeah, so let me share the 5 principles, right? So the first principle I talk about in the book is work with your strengths. Every single one of us has some strengths. We have, if you ask my wife, she will put a list of 50 weaknesses or 100 weaknesses or 1,000 weaknesses and problems that I have that she wants me to solve. I can go my whole life and I'll never solve it. But I might have 3 strengths, I might have 4 strengths, 5 strengths. If I apply that, then I am actually bringing my full self to anything that I do. Now, we may actually say, okay, that's great to say, but it is actually a neurological phenomenon. Our brain functions much better when we focus on our strengths. When people get a stroke and are paralyzed, the neurosurgeons actually don't ask the patient to focus on the weak side of the body, they ask them to focus on the strong side of the body. And the mind, the brain starts imitating. So just think about it. If you write down 3 strengths and say, hey, every week, every day, I will ensure I'll do something that uses my strengths, whatever that might be. It's a very simple thing to do. But you now build that muscle of rather focusing on problems, you're actually focusing on solutions. And you're focusing on your strengths. Second is abundance. Right? We always have the scarcity. And by the way, it is there, it's real. Right? So I'm not saying that scarcity is not there. All I'm saying is that if you flip the switch and say, I'll start somewhere, and something will happen, and I will get resources, and some additional resources will happen. I'll just give you an example of a group that I'm working with here in the US. These are these 5 individuals that got released from prison in California 2 years ago. They were incarcerated for life. They were in prison for over 20 years. They went in as 20-year-old. They all came out in their 50s. Right? So these are not somebody that was just normal human being. I mean, they went into prison. But in prison, they found purpose in life. And they changed themselves. And they came out. There are 5 black individuals, 4 black, 1 white, committed to prison, got released because of their good work. And today, in 2 years, they've raised over $28 million to help other formerly incarcerated prisoners get a job in the tech sector. And all they've done is applied their minds. They've just focused on the why and not the how. And by focusing, and by the way, these are people who have got discriminated all their lives. One of them was in solitary confinement for 8.5 years. So what I'm saying is that it is just the way you kind of look at the world. And if you can just shift, right? So of course, not everything is going to come to you right away. You have to work hard. You have to take no for an answer. You will not get resources, but you keep working at it. And over a period of time, you actually then start getting the resources that you need. The third principle is, it is not about how effective you are, but it is about how efficient you are. Change the approach of being, hey, I've got to do everything the right way. Find the right thing to do. Fourth, it is about igniting movements. And igniting movements means that you cannot go it alone. It is no longer about building organizations. It is building a community of people that actually become part of the effort that you want to do. And then the 5th principle is this movement from generosity to empathy to compassion. And it is that focus from the me to the we and the common good. So if you start building on these 5 principles, then you're actually shifting your mindset and you are including purpose.
Interesting. Thank you. And I like the, moving again, thinking effectively and not efficiently is what you were trying to go with the number 3. So again, I know you've been to visit to Cairo to actually have some kind of, hopefully, I'm not saying like a tangible output where you would leave, you go in a training session, you train a group of people to identify their purpose, and you worked with, again, people in the Ministry of Planning and the Ministry herself and a group. And can you tell us a bit about that process where actually you're able to identify strengths and values and craft what you call crafting your personal statement and how that works?
Yes, it's a very simple exercise, actually. I just give people 10 minutes and say, okay, here are a list of words which they pick from, which are strengths. And I ask them to identify 3 of them.
Okay.
And then I ask them to identify 3 values. What are your values, your deep-seated values? And then use those 6 words to craft a purpose statement. And purpose is really what you want to see achieved, right? So when you kind of look at it, how do you move from, then you start saying, look, this is really what I want to do. And I'll read out a purpose statement for you, right? That was done by Dr. Sharifa Sharif, who's you all know. And she basically says, through experience, knowledge, and compassion, and using strengths to help others develop and make a difference in their lives and their organization. Right? So you don't have to be grand, you don't have to be huge, but it is really using that. And her strengths are being focused, responsible, work under pressure. And her values are empathy, ethics, and humble. But I'll also give you another example, right? I mean, Dr. Sarah Eid, she's on the webinar. She's at the Ministry of Finance, and she has launched these citizenship clubs. And she actually has one at AUC, right? And she's using the purpose mindset exercise to actually start centering those that are participating in the citizenship clubs, because she wants to use people, not use is not the right word, but she wants to activate regular people to become responsible for their communities and do good. Right? And purpose now becomes a way in which you can center what it is that you want to achieve. So to me, one of the things that we have been focused on is a growth mindset. Right? Dr. The seminal work that was done from Stanford University, growth mindset, we all kind of understand growth. But growth is the how. Growth is constantly improve, be a learner, take risks, don't be afraid of failures. But purpose is the why. It is the soul of the matter. Why are you doing this? Why do you wake up every day? For what? And that purpose statement then centers you. So the purpose mindset then introduces the trinity of the self, the work, and the community. And at the end of the day, you start answering the question, I am growing to improve the work that I'm doing to benefit the community. Growth is you improve, your work improves, you improve. So it's the movement from the how to the why, to me, is the important pace. And the exercises that we do is really a way to kind of get people to first identify their strengths and values, craft a purpose statement, but then we ask them to apply it, use it regularly, keep track of it, keep a purpose mindset journal. I'm doing this work with companies, with students, with communities. And we get some very exciting ways in which people are actually talking about what it is that they're doing. And by the way, purpose is not a cause, nor is it a revelation. Right? It's a choice. You can decide. It is your purpose. You can decide you want to have a purpose and you want to activate it, or you can decide, I don't want to.
Akhtar, can you expand on that a bit? Because from, purpose, a lot of people can confuse purpose from a cause, like, is it not using big words? Is it not using, transfer? What would make it different? I mean, because my follow-up question was, so you're a young person who wrote your purpose statement, you hit the job, young undergraduate at AUC, and I'd be very happy again to use these tools and with my students. And then we put them out there in the world, and with the, with the limited resources, which are not abundant, or the limited options that they have, how are they supposed to spread it out in the communities they have at a point of time, as you said, that their priority might not be purpose oriented?
Yeah, so again, I mean, I think that I am less, so here is what is going to happen, right? You have students at AUC. A third of your students are actually going to go take a job in which they find their own purpose.
Okay.
They're just going to find that job where they're going to take their own purpose and they will not do anything else. Right? They will go figure that out because they will get work that is purposeful for them. The other third are going to go and say, I need to make money. I'm going to get a job which is going to pay me well. At this point, yeah, I'm a business graduate. I really don't care mostly what company I really want to earn a living. And the other third are going to say, I want to be a senior director. I don't want to be a program manager. That's why I got my MBA. And that's what I'm going to look at. And that's what they're going to get. And that's fine. That is absolutely, that's all they should do. But then you start looking and saying, if I craft my purpose statement, how do I bring that into whatever I do? So even if I'm driven by financial resources first, can I now find purpose? And if you look at the stories I've kind of written in my book, people discovered purpose at an early age, or people discovered purpose, when they became very senior executives in the company, right? There are people who said, like, I came here as an immigrant. My first thing was, I need to make money. That same person, another person came from that same town and said, hey, I'm actually getting paid quite well at Microsoft. And, Microsoft is saying, donate, they will match $10,000 and I'll donate $10,000 because I want to support my village. People make that choice in very different ways. So all I'm saying is that once you've articulated your purpose statement and your strengths, you can then improve in how you're doing your work. I don't want everybody to suddenly say, everything that I'm going to do is driven by purpose. But I'm saying that purpose becomes a guiding point. And right now, we don't talk enough about purpose to become a guiding point.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Right? Growth has become the guiding point. And what growth is doing is that it is actually dividing us into camps because we are all focused on just ourselves. And that's what I'm trying to change. So for the students, it's actually very simple. Write your purpose statement, keep it there, make sure that you work on it and grow. And what you might discover is 2 years from now, you might say, my next stint, I'm going to be a little bit more focused on being purposeful. My third stint, I might actually be much more focused on being purposeful. But I'm still living a purposeful life because I'm living it for myself, for my family, for my community, and my work might change over a period of time.
Interesting. I struggle with the same thing for sustainability, and when I work with students, and again, there's the whole understanding is that after I reach a certain level of success or growth or establishment, then I can start worrying about the secondary issues of sustainability. So it rings a bell there, and I really like that. If you make it a living, a changeable, if you accept that you can switch it, or your priorities or your purpose can develop as you move through your career. And God knows with this day and age, the career shifts are going to be even more common than our generation, your generation and mine. So we need to give the idea that redefining your purpose every few years is something, it becomes a way of life, right? So that, again, I think it would be very useful in that area.
Also, let me just say that people who have made the biggest change in the world, the biggest change in the world, whether it's from the business side, from the political side, from the community side, have not been old people.
Yeah, began small. I was going to say, began early.
They were in their 20s. So Bill Gates didn't start Microsoft because he wanted to become rich. He started Microsoft because he had a purpose in terms of how technology could to bring about global change. Steve Jobs didn't start Apple because he wanted to become rich. He actually saw the power of how design and devices could make a difference in how people use their minds. Elon Musk didn't create Tesla because he wanted to become rich. He actually fundamentally looked at it and said, combustion engines time is over. We can create a much better, cleaner engine. space exploration shouldn't have to be just government driven. These were people all in their 20s and 30s, and many of them almost went bankrupt trying to do this. Right? So they had purpose. They were more focused on the why than the how. The how kept coming. Of course, they were privileged. They found connections. They were lucky. They got breaks, but some people don't get the breaks. They got the breaks. They will tell you for the first thing, right? I mean, you know, Tesla, SpaceX, if the fourth rocket had failed, they would have shut the company down because he was out of money. He would go bankrupt. But it succeeded. That was luck. But luck came because they kept trying. So the question, and you know, whether you take Martin Luther King, whether you take Mahatma Gandhi, whether you take Nelson Mandela, whether you take your Egyptian heroes, right? All of them started young. And so to me, we shouldn't be afraid of young people are always taking risks and challenges and questioning the way in which we live. And purpose is what should be driving you. So I have great belief in the young folks that are actually going to drive these change than old people like me.
Me too. Me too. Me too. And again, I love that part where even intuitively you said, do not, you know, you shouldn't ask students graduating, you know, are you, what you want to become, right? Because, and the community pressures here are enormous, Akhtar, you can imagine, and also, you know, with the investments are putting in their kids' education. So the lovely thing is that who do you want to serve is a question that they might want to shift to. And it will take, of course, the external community to change, you know, and it might be even more difficult at this side of the world than, and you know, when you said Seattle, they're building a community that people are just moving there and building their own. When you have this amount of heritage and tradition in our culture, it might be, I'm arguing, a bit more difficult than the voice that
actually, to be honest, I would say that our cultures, our Eastern cultures have been much more generous because we are actually not individual focused. We are much more community focused, right? So I would not underestimate the power of our culture, the Eastern culture, to make change. Let me also just kind of say, okay, it's very easy for me to use words, right? Hey, don't tell your kids who you want to be, who you want to serve. I never did that either. Right? As parents, are like, hey, you got educated, better go get a job. Right? So it's not easy. If it was easy, we would all be doing it, right? We've all kind of fallen into this trap of commercialization and a different way in which we have been for the last 40 years being trained. I'm trying to say that that is running out of steam because we are seeing more divisions because of that. And that maybe we all need to work much harder to look at how we actually lived before, where we were purposeful, we were community driven. We kind of built with each other's strength. We didn't put people down. And how do you go back to that in a modern world, in a changed world with new skills, with new insights? And your students at AUC are the most privileged. Even if you came from humble background, the minute you got admitted into AUC, you're walking in the halls of privilege. Yeah. You look at the campus that you walk in, it is privilege. So how are you now going to take that privilege and extend it outward?
Very nice. Very nice. And again, let's shift a little bit to the corporate world, where you actually said that you can use these, actually, the book or the exercises or the concept of purpose mindset towards creating a culture in an organization. Again, with the uniqueness of every enterprise. And have you, can you share with us examples of, how top CEOs, even one statistic, remember you mentioned the McKinsey report where there's a gap between when you run the survey with top management and you have a different feedback from the employees. So expand a little bit on the disconnect that happens in purpose mindset within corporations and within organizational cultures.
Yeah, so McKinsey did this study in April of 2021, and the title of the report is "Help Your Employees Find Purpose or They Will Walk Out."
Okay.
And they're basically, and what is happening is that today you're seeing that people are looking for meaning. The pandemic actually changed us.
That's true.
Every single one of us was impacted. There is not a single person who could actually say, I didn't have anything to do with the pandemic. Everybody got impacted. Some much more, some less. But every single person, and it gave us the opportunity to rethink why we exist. And in that rethinking, people are actually trying to find different ways in which they want to get meaning from what they do. And the challenge is that we kind of want to find meaning, but we have not sat down and created what meaning we want. And the exercise that I take people through just takes them through that first step of putting pen to paper and writing it down. Then you have to live it. What we are doing is working with companies, with the CEOs, with the board, with the leadership team, with the rank and file employees to actually create these purpose statements for themselves, for the organization, for the group, and then aligning it as to how they will apply it in their life, in their community, and to their work. And what we are finding is that people are really now seeing the value they're getting out of their work, that it's no longer just a 9-to-5 job. I'm doing this because I'm doing something better for the community, which doesn't mean that you're not going to get evaluated on how much money you made for the company or not, or whether you met your goals or not. That is not the point. We are certainly not trying to make companies to become charities, but we are trying to create a mindset shift where employees believe that their company is not just there to make money. It cares about the world. It cares about the community they live in. It cares about me as an individual. So at the top level, that's where we work in getting that change to happen. And at the rank and file, we actually now get employees to say, okay, this is what your company cares for. How are you aligning to it? And for some, it's going to work, and for some, it's not going to work. And that's okay. But we are now doing it for billion-dollar companies. We are doing it for Microsoft and Starbucks and nonprofit organizations, big companies, small companies. And people are finding that this is not rocket science. This is not some complicated exercise that we are asking people to do. And I got the chairman of Deloitte and Touche to write his purpose statement, and he said, I've never done this before in my life. I said, this was such a fabulous experience for me. In 10 minutes, I was able to deeply articulate what I really stand for. And hear everybody else in the company saying that, saying their purpose statements. And now we can actually align. We've got a different discovery of our humanity. Now, not everybody will do that. That's fine.
Very interesting. I think it's time to take some questions. I have still a couple of mine too, but let's open to the audience. I have here, let's take it from the top. Bishoy Sabri asking, how do for-profit organizations best harmonize their business purpose with a more meaningful purpose without compromising any of the aspects of the business and without the proposed being too marginalized? It's a good follow-up on what we're talking about again, Akhtar, because, again, there's the alignment, but then there's the execution and there's the strategy that's going to follow it. And how narrow or wide, maybe, so let me follow up on this one. Can you have your purpose?
Yeah, so let me, so iCertis is a company, it's now a $5 billion company. They do contract management, right? Yeah. And their CEO came to me and said, I want you to do this exercise for our whole executive leadership team. So there are 50 people around the world. Okay. And we got them to craft their individual purpose statements, their strengths, their values. From that, we sat with a smaller group of people in the company, the leadership team, and crafted a purpose statement for the company. Once that purpose statement was crafted, they actually shared it out with the whole company and said, we're going to align everybody's purpose to the company's purpose. And we want you to do it. And they've created these 4 rings of responsibilities. We want you to do it to improve yourself, your family, your community, and work. Now we've actually taken one vertical division of the company, which is the marketing and ISR team, and they are actually getting every single employee there to create the purpose statement and align it. And their leadership team is going to write a purpose statement for their group. So that purpose statement then becomes connected to the purpose statement of the company, and then the individual purpose statement. And then we are going to go through and do this for all 3,000 employees.
Wow.
So the important thing is to really start getting a belief into that this is not something that is a good to do. It has to be integral to what you're doing. And if you can get companies to kind of think through that, right? And it's not about, hey, are they're as focused on revenue generating as ever before? In some ways, people are actually coming out with a much better mindset to go do the work.
So what you're saying, the job satisfaction gets better, or the certain performance gets better because of the belief or that you're working towards this common goal or common cause that you all believe in. Is that what you're trying to say?
That is correct. That is exactly correct.
Okay, because we have another a controversial one. Henny is thanking us, saying excellent conversation. Thank you both. Enterprise of the future will need to be, of course, purpose driven, in line with what you've been saying, not simply profit or growth driven. Purpose is not solely about having CSR. We know that, the lipstick concept, right, or contributing to a nonprofit as sustainability lipstick. It's more overarching. It defines the relationship of the enterprise with the larger ecosystem and broad stakeholders. So are there certain guidelines, maybe Akhtar, that you have in those training sessions where that if purpose statements become too narrow or too disconnect from the communities that they are the stakeholders, that you can guide them back? Is it you're standing in the room with people writing their purpose statements? Is there a right or wrong way to guide them to do it a better job? No?
No. So first of all, this is your personal purpose statement. You're not writing a purpose statement for your work. You're writing your own purpose statement. To me, the important thing is that what do I want to do? Irrespective of what my qualifications and training is. What do I want to do? Then what is the company going? And then are there connections that I can find between the two? It cannot be fully matched. It will never be fully matched.
Of course not.
And it should not be fully matched. Otherwise, we are robots. We are not individuals, right? So we don't want everybody to have the exact. This is one of the when I did these exercises, the leadership team was like, okay, so now we've got gaps with people with strength. Shall we be hiring people based on this? And the answer is no. It is not about. It's not retrofitting. It is actually looking at what you have and then saying, how am I going to best utilize it? So even for a person, your work should not become your purpose. Your purpose, your work should be part of your purpose. And not everything that you do in your work will be enjoyable. It should not be. You have to do mundane things. That's why it's called work. But what is the larger goal you're achieving? And if you can connect to that, then you will find satisfaction, then you will find joy, then you'll find meaning. But it's not every day that you wake up and say, oh my God, I'm doing such phenomenal work. Even people who work in nonprofit organizations have to wake up and say, I got to go raise money. Yep. I got to go take the bus and sit at the back of the bus and go 50 miles to Fayoum to do this. It's not that, so there are things that people do. So I just want people to kind of understand that this is not about suddenly becoming
sunny
salvation.
Right. Yeah. I know what you're saying. Because we have to ask very nice aspirational comments again from an anonymous attendee saying, I'm a finance undergraduate student. I don't feel like I'm the money driven, which is one of the three ones you positioned. A bit too young for the status maybe, but so and I wake up some days feeling lost because I don't have purpose. What can I do at least to get a grasp of what I'm doing? And then I think there's a point from Karma Sharif saying that are there purpose statement tools, strengths available online? I think you pointed to an online link at a point of time during our conversation before. that we can?
Yeah, so I had actually created a little exercise for you guys to craft your purpose statement. And I will actually, talk to Dr. Sherwat and kind of train her how to do it so that she can actually get you all to create your craft, your purpose statement. And that's the beginning, right? Look, nobody has a purpose statement. There is not a single person I've gone to who's come back to me and said, oh, I've got a purpose statement written up. We've done thousands of these now. So people start somewhere and it's a living document. So and by the way, if you're money driven, fine. You should not be ashamed of it. But also figure out, why are you money driven? What is the impact that you want to have in the world, even if you're money driven? Right? So let's not put value judgment just because somebody is money driven, they're evil or bad, or they're status driven, they're bad. No, this is who you are. I just want you to discover that, write it down, and then work towards it in a way that you extend the common good.
I understand. And again, you mentioned primary and secondary purpose. So is there, again, in that tool or in the training you're talking about, a way that you can have that hierarchy in your purpose, or, like a first priority, second, or does it work that way?
We haven't done that simply because I don't want to confuse people.
Okay.
All I'm saying is that everybody should be able to craft a purpose statement. And the way they craft it will tell us where their priorities are. But it's a living document, and it will change and it will evolve, and do it every couple of years and see where you are, and then apply it and utilize it. To me, it's more about utilization and creating these small habits that you're using it, you're focused on it, you're discovering it. Then it will make an impact. Otherwise, it's a great exercise. I do it. There are a lot of people who pay me to go do it. It's a great, team building exercise. People use it as a way to build teams, and then they forget about it.
I see. And again, you mentioned the diary. So again, it's a reflection. It's how you actually change habits of people you reflect about what their purpose. And again, with the diary, you mentioned that you keep up with, updated, and keep track of things. It's a way of thinking, mind shift, a mindset, which actually you put in your title of your book, but we're taking it to a little bit, thank you for bearing with us. We have another comment with Muhammad here. In my opinion, the first purpose of human beings are to serve people, whatever your organization and your jobs, to help the human activities, whatever their position, places, and age. This is the mindset that I wish. Good for you, Muhammad. So according to notice above, why do you think that your minds are better than others, undertaking that people's lives are whatever it's done, and in many situations in crisis? Not quite. Do you get it? I think he's saying.
So I think I want to be, Mohammed, I want to be very clear. Nobody's mind is better than another person's mind.
Of course. I see.
Right? I mean, and also you have to I think what I'm trying to do is to get people to be honest about themselves. Right. You don't be aspirational when you're writing your purpose statement. Write your purpose statement where you are right now.
Okay. That's a good tip. Yeah, right now.
Your strengths should not be aspirational. It should be what you are right now. Your value should not be aspirational. It should be what it is right now. Then you can start evolving from that and say from 3 years from now, it will change. But to me, the more important thing is that it is you. You have that choice. A bus driver can have purpose.
I see.
An orderly in a hospital can have a purpose. A janitor in a school can have a purpose. The women picking dates in Siva can have a purpose. A CEO of a company might not have a purpose. So purpose doesn't have to do with status.
I see.
It just has to do with how you want to lead your life.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And I guess Ahmed's follow-up question says, with everyday dynamics, sometimes I tend to forget so this is someone who has a personal purpose statement, but he tends to forget it. How can he remind himself and live it each and every day? It's a good, point.
Yeah. So I basically ask people to keep a purpose mindset journal.
A journal. Okay.
Right? Keep a journal, create 4 categories: self, family, community, work.
Let's go again. Self, family,
community,
and work. Okay.
Right? And note down, how have I used my strengths, values, and purpose for myself? One week, it might just be you are just focused on yourself. Another week, you might just be focused on your community. The third week, you might be focused on your work. Fourth week, it might be family. It might be all of them together. Just note it down. Just, write a paragraph, put a picture, put two statements. I did this. To improve myself, I just spent 5 hours reading a book.
Mm-hmm.
Write it down. I just went on a walk. I didn't want to do anything. I just went on a walk. I took my family out to the park.
Very nice.
I went and helped my neighbor get X.
Very nice.
This is what I discovered in my work. And now you will have a record over a 12-month period. You can suddenly go back and look at it and say, okay, this is how I'm actually living my life.
Nice.
Now you can build on it.
Very nice. That's very, thank you, Akhtar. That's very helpful. Professor Galaddin is asking, would you prefer that one starts with empathy, then move to purpose, or the other way around? Which should generate what?
I mean, I believe that we are all purposeful, we are all empathetic, we are all compassionate. We just don't use these muscles all the time because we get caught up in the day-to-day work, which is overwhelming, is real. If I have to wait 2 hours in line to get bread, I have to wait 2 hours in line to get bread. In these realities, I'm trying people to just step back. 1 hour a week, 2 hours a week, and focus on how you want to develop. Purpose to me is the center of your soul. Out of that comes empathy, out of that comes generosity, out of that comes compassion. So to me, it is important to kind of focus on what is my purpose? Why do I wake up every day? It is not necessarily to be happy, but it is to make some difference. And that difference could be, I helped this old lady cross Tahrir Square. Have you tried crossing Tahrir Square on foot? I've tried to do that and I got killed twice.
You're very good at it. I'm good at it. I can help.
Right? I went for a walk in the morning, last month in Tahrir, so that I could get to the river, and I almost died. And then I decided, okay, 9 o'clock is not the right time to cross Tahrir Square. 6 a.m. you cross, nobody's there.
You're good. You're safe. Yeah.
Right? So, but there are people, I see people who help other people cross Tahrir Square. They have done something for humanity. So it's just these simple acts that grow on you. And that's why the journal becomes important. It is not suddenly saying, I will only write down when I have solved poverty in Egypt.
Yeah, I see your
Never
point.
going to happen.
Yeah. I see. So to answer Galad's questions, like I see it more as a pragmatic way, because purpose is individual and it doesn't put the empathy imposition on you if you're by default, because again, we are different as human beings. And we talked about, you could be generous, but not empathetic in our earlier discussion. So, if you're being empathetic as a training, of course, it's great to train, to bring up generations that are empathetic. But if you make it purposeful, then they can actually choose at a point of time to be more empathetic than not. Maybe that's what you're going with.
Yeah.
So. All right, Dr. Ali Aouni here, my lovely colleagues are participating, and this is an honor, honestly. So if you have a critical mass of individuals with a certain mindset, does that generate a movement? The title of your book, right? The previous title. And would this movement convert eventually to a culture? Or is it that movements are about revolutions and cultures are about evolutions? Good point, Ali. Interesting also to notice that revolutions mostly started by younger people, while evolutions are led by older people. Very insightful. A lot of stuff in there.
Yeah, this is phenomenal.
This is phenomenal.
Dr. Ali is really phenomenal. I so appreciate it. So first of all, I think that purpose allows us to ignite movements. But let me give you an example, which is not a revolution. I write about this in my book. Hadi Partovi, very privileged, but came out of Iran during the revolution, very good science, coding person, went to Harvard, came early to Microsoft, made a lot of money selling a company, and decided to create an organization called code.org, which is to get every kid some amount of coding skills. He's got Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates and everybody investing in him. And he basically said, oh, I can do this, right? I will create this huge organization that will go out and teach millions of kids how to code. Very early in that process, he realized that if he did not involve teachers and if this did not become a movement of teachers, he will never succeed. So he changed his whole approach to actually working with teachers and giving teachers the tool, who were then able to localize the curriculum that he was developing for kindergarten students, for elementary students, for middle school students, for high school students in multiple languages, which is now they've got about 85 million kids that are learning to code on this platform with tens of thousands of teachers. That became a movement. It was not a revolution, but he changed his mindset that it is not going to be me that is going to drive this. It is going to be the teachers that are going to drive me. And I'm going to be a vessel for them and the students. So it's really that is what I'm getting people to understand. Certain businesses have become movements.
Okay.
I mean, we go to certain businesses, even knowing some of the challenges, because they've actually shifted our mind as to how we work with that business. Uber is a great example. Airbnb is a great example. Amazon is a great example. These are all businesses that have actually shifted the way in which you connect with the business, where it goes beyond the mundane. And yes, you're getting something in return, but there is a far more emotional connection you have, which kind of changes the way in which people think about it. Right? So second generation businesses, which are internet driven, have actually figured out how to attach emotions. TikTok. What is the value of TikTok? Instagram. There are emotions that have been created to connect so that they create movements. And I think that's the shift we are seeing.
And then there's the other part of the question about revolution and culture. It's a very interesting topic. We are, heading to the, top of the clock. So we're going to have to wrap it up. And I see the whole movement. Again, when you mentioned about critical mass becoming a movement and how you can do it through, you see it in some corporations where you can identify it's not just a company, it's a movement, right? Versus the business itself. About revolution. I like the older, can we just reflect on the older, younger one? So you believe that evolutions are led by older people? Can youth lead evolutions?
I mean, this is interesting, right? I kind of need to think about it. We mellow down as we age, right? Okay. And we also understand that change doesn't happen right away. Younger people want to see immediate change. Mm-hmm. And then reality sets in. Mm-hmm. And then even revolutions become evolutions. Okay. So I think that in some ways I do agree that, older people, do think about evolutions. But I also believe that younger people, when you start looking at some of the large nonprofits that have been started, just take, the work that Kailash Satyarthi is doing. He started when he was in his 20s to save kids from bondage in India. He would literally go on raids and free kids. He's now 65 and he's also evolved. And he's now got 100 million people and he's changed laws in about 100 countries. But he did go on raids and he still goes on raids to rescue people. So I think it kind of just depends on how you have created yourself in terms of risk taking. Maybe.
All right, well, I have to be mindful of the time, being the moderator here. So I mean, again, and I want to put Karim Sharif at ease. It's not about, again, he's saying from your experience, the majority of corporate finance employees are money driven, or it's not a must. I think it's the guilt of being a finance student at the AUC. So yes, I don't know if I'm allowed to for the minimum training. It's okay, right? Can you answer that question, Akhtar?
Yeah, I mean, I really, look, I seriously don't care whether you're money driven or not.
Yeah.
Just be a good human. Just be a nice person.
Or self-reflect on your purpose every often enough, right?
Right. No, if you're a nice person, you will smile at people. If you're nice people, you'll help other people and you will be purposeful. So nicety goes a long way. So money there are a lot of people who are driven by money who are nice and are helpful, and there are others who are not. So I think, to me, you should not be ashamed that you want to make money. You should just be driven by purpose when you're making money.
I mean, we have so much to talk about. Hopefully we'll follow up with another face-to-face meeting sometime soon in Egypt. But thank you. I want to thank the audience again for the amazing engagement. I want to thank you, of course, Professor Badshah, for your amazing insights. And read the book. I think I have a very, very easy solution for you. It's really not expensive on Amazon. I saw it, like, come on, everyone can definitely access that book. And it's Kindle, right? You can download it.
Yes, it is Kindle, it is Audible.
It's available, yeah. So I really encourage you to all to take a look at it. And hopefully if you do those train the trainer sessions, we have a lot of people within the audience joining us. So again, thank you very much for your time, Akhtar. And
thank you so much, Sherwat, and I really appreciate it, and all the best to all of you.
Thank you.
And Ramadan Kareem.
Ramadan Kareem. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.